Hello and welcome to my top 5 space, sci-fi, 4X or real-time strategy games coming out in this wonderful year, 2022. My name is JumboPixel. In this video, I'm going to cover off Falling Frontier, Stellaris Overlords, Galactic Civilizations IV, Terra Invicta, and a new one, Fragile Existence. I'll be showing some gameplay footage or trailers courtesy of the development studios themselves. Without any further ado, let's like and subscribe and jump straight in. First and foremost, I'm going to tackle Falling Frontier, one of the games that I am most excited about for releasing this year, and as you can see on screen, courtesy of IGN, a new trailer for Falling Frontier has launched since I last talked about this game about a month ago. News does not stop on Falling Frontier. Let me introduce you. It's a, quote, revolutionary sci-fi real-time strategy game. The focus here on Falling Frontier is about ship design, reconnaissance, and logistics, all built within an incredibly beautiful world. Take a look at even the gameplay shots from Falling Frontier. Look fantastic. If you've seen, and you will see shots of the actual planets themselves as well, where you'll be colonizing and living and building your society, they look absolutely incredible. In this trailer, we got a better feel for some of those things that Falling Frontier really prides itself on. The game is built on a procedurally generated star system, and as I say, my goodness, it looks like a beautiful one. Planets, moons, asteroid fields, you name it. Crucially though, and as you can see on screen here, this game also really focuses on shipyards, supply, logistics, reconnaissance, unlocking ship hulls and weapons, colonization, you name it, it's got it, let's talk. The combat system really intrigues me as well. I'm going to share a couple of interesting things about both the combat system and the logistics system that I think make Falling Frontier a game worth looking out for. Firstly, something that I'm really tickled by is that shots in combat can strike unintended targets after missing or ricocheting off hulls. You've seen it a little bit already in this trailer, but how cool is that? It adds to that livability, that realism of the world, and as you can see, as far as I know, and I'm no astronaut, but this is a beautifully rendered space world. The logistics are another key part I think that should be highlighted here about Falling Frontier. As the developers note, wars are won and lost by logistics, right? These beautiful planetary worlds and these systems that you're colonizing are, of course, supplied and fueled by logistics and trade, so on and so forth. In Falling Frontier, they take it a step further, though, applying intel, probes, and scout ships, reconnaissance stations, and more to explore the procedurally generated world, alongside that deep dive into ship design, weaponry, crew as well, another notable feature, to pull everything together into a world that should be, from what I can tell, suitable to a variety of players. Knocked out? Never fear. Guerrilla warfare, siege tactics, and attacking logistics could be your answer out of Falling Frontier's problem. I can't wait to see more. Next up is Stellaris, and this is a game, of course, that isn't new, and I've played a lot of it, but I haven't actually covered it much on the channel. The reason why it makes it into this list is because of the Overlords DLC announcement. Now, Stellaris, it's worth noting, is a game that just continues to be updated. It is from Paradox themselves. It's a 4X grand strategy real-time sci-fi space game. It's a strategy game that if you haven't played, I absolutely recommend picking it up. Because it's been out for a long time, again, this is the only one to not actually be intended or fully releasing this year in 2022, it's an interesting one. It's incredibly well developed. What does then the new DLC, the Overlords DLC, bring? Well, to summarize the developers themselves, new ways to rule. It's about making the vassal and liege system more interesting and more engaged. It includes things like extra support to negotiating terms. How can subjects be integrated? Can the subject have better diplomacy? Can they expand freely? All of these questions being posed. Moreover, though, it builds on this sort of loyalty system, this currency between a vassal to measure its relationship with its liege. But beyond that, though, there's pledges of loyalty. Secret fealties against overlords can be merged. I just think this is the fantastic upgrade to the Federation's DLC that came before. And in my opinion, it really completes that sort of Order 66 feel, adding a more nuanced individual layer to the game between subjects and their vassals. A wonderful feature that could and should be expanded on more, because it really helps you manage multiple empires and a sprawling system, particularly through into the later game. I'm excited to see what they'll deliver with Overlord, no S on the end. I can't wait to try it out. And to rudely interrupt your viewing pleasure, I just want to say a huge shout out to the channel members who keep this gravy train afloat. Channel memberships on YouTube are just like Twitch subscriptions. I've built a few tiers as cheap as I possibly can to give you access to fun emojis and all sorts of other stuff. If you choose to support the channel, which a few of you do, and I love you for it, there are higher tiers available as well, with a few benefits throughout. Thank you, all of you. Let's get back to the video. And what better place to get back to than here? This is Galactic Civilizations IV, currently in beta, will be, I believe, fully releasing this year. It's a franchise that has a very rich history in this space. It cannot be understated. Galactic Civilizations IV is, of course, their latest edition, and it provides, might I say, when I streamed it recently, a wonderful world-building story element to this game. And it can be difficult with sci-fi space games to try and build that realism when you compare them to historical strategy games like Civilization VI or Humankind, for example. Galactic Civilizations IV builds on the legacy of Gal Civ 3 and so on. This is a turn-based 4X sci-fi space strategy game. I love some of the systems that you're seeing on screen, and I've specifically decided to showcase them to you right now. What does this add that others don't, though? It might be what you're wondering. Let me try and fill you in. Really, Gal Civ 4 is about story-driven missions. It's about star sectors, so it sort of builds these individual little packets of worlds and then connects them together. Kind of like the system that some of you might be familiar with in Stellaris, if you've already seen that on screen from earlier in this video. The star sectors system is really fantastic in this game, though. It can't be understated. It helps build exploration. Each sector itself is akin to a map in Gal Civ 3, so they've really scaled up here as well. Building on that, we have a new combat system, fleet design, a new invasion system. In the latest Beta 2 update that I've been playing around with, you can also watch your battles play out in a cinematic view as well, helping to add to that real realism. And then at the wider level in Galactic Civilizations IV, you have a few things that I've already shown you on screen. Things like the ideological system, where they break away from good versus evil and instead provide 7 spectrums of ideology. It provides much better balance. The system here as well around planetary design and upgrading your tiles is really fun too. I'm excited to see where Gal Civ 4 continues to progress as it moves towards its full release out of the current beta version that it sits in right now. It's one to watch, I think. Speaking of one to watch, next we have Terra Invicta, another game out of the publishing studio Hooded Horse, but of course developed by separate developers, this one developed by Pavonis Interactive. Terra Invicta is an interesting one. I've developed a whole video on it on my channel already. If you haven't seen it though, let me catch you up on the broad basics of what sets Terra Invicta apart from the rest. The story is relatively simple and incredibly exciting. An extraterrestrial probe is detected approaching Earth, unknown to humanity. An alien force has arrived in the icy belts outside of Earth. With Earth's nations unable to unite, go figure, against this existential threat, groups have emerged, like the Resistance, the Servants, the Academy, and the Intuitive. You control one of these groups, these factions, and take on the realms of this incredible looking world to try and not only give humanity's first steps into our solar system. I believe over 300 asteroids, moons, and planets feature in this, quote, ever-changing strategic map, so it'll be interesting to see that. But then, of course, there's also management within Earth, okay? You are, or Earth, I should say, is on the beginning of being headed by a shadowy organization with other geopolitical control, military, economic, political leaderships. There is a geopolitical sandbox, I believe, buried within this game, focusing on Earth itself and how you lead your faction, combined of course with things like research elements, illustrated events as well in-game, another key feature that I think is really important to these games, and as you can see on screen, some wonderful shipbuilding, design, and combat elements too. I think Terra Invicta is one to watch, I really do. I think it builds on that interesting geopolitical challenge of trying to unite a very divided Earth, combining that with some of the interesting space elements of expanding humanity's reach out into the solar system, with some interesting events alongside of it. I think Terra Invicta will be one to watch. I believe it's currently scheduled for release in Q2, so this season of 2022, much like Falling Frontier from the start of this video. There we go, coming Q2 2022! Last, and certainly not least, here we have a very interesting one. Fragile Existence. Fragile Existence developed, I believe, from what I saw on the IGN initial posting of this trailer, by one developer, going by the name of Fragile Continuum, and published again by Hooded Horse. If you haven't been paying attention to Hooded Horse already, I think you should. This publishing studio featured, by complete coincidence, in 3 out of 5 things on this list. Let's talk about this game that you're seeing right now, though, Fragile Existence. The brink of extinction. Around the year 2700, humanity, beyond our expansion of Sol, has come under threat. We've been attacked by an unknown alien origin, and the near-Earth territories have been completely annihilated, with only a handful of ships in what is left in our millennia-old species. Will we be able to, the question is, survive the collapse? That is the story that's set behind this game. It's about a fight for survival. It includes gameplay characteristics and features that we're relatively familiar with, but with a really nuanced take on them, and I think you'll get a feel for that looking at the stills and some of the shots in this game. You'll see similarities with some that I've already covered, but also some key differences. Look at this here. You can see it on screen. The gameplay playing out here as scouting, attempting to explore these territories on these worlds. Take a look. You can see the gameplay is very different, right? This is a step aside from some of the other things, yet it is still, of course, important to note, a strategy simulation, grand strategy 4X title, with real-time elements as well. It's got a whole load of things tagged to it. I'm very excited to see where it goes. Now, you've already got a feel for some of the scouting, exploring ahead mechanics. There's more to it, though. Of course, you will have seen some of the fleets, organizing your fleets for optimum results. It is, of course, like many other games, a battle for resources, and indeed finding these planets, pacifying them, rendering them, as you can see here, perhaps somewhat useless, or building them up to capture their resources. Drones, ships, all of these tools will be employed, and you can see that on screen. We need to, of course, ultimately resist extinction. This game has a real survival feel to it, I believe. However, I am just going off the trailer footage from what we've seen, because so far, as you can imagine, information is relatively light on this one. It's on my wish list. I'm looking out for it. These 5 games that I've mentioned on this list, by the way, are not an exhaustive list. There are many other titles I've got my eyes on, including things like Alliance of the Sacred Sons. That one is on my list, along with many others that I shouldn't mention because there are too many to cover. Thank you very much for watching this video today, where I've highlighted the 5 ones that interest me the most. Do let me know down below if there are other things that I've missed here as we conclude the video. There probably are. I'd love to hear about them. It's hard to keep track of, but one thing I can say for certain is that 2022 looks to be the year for space, for sci-fi strategy games, because my goodness, these ones look great.